In their most recent game against the Oklahoma City Thunder, the Toronto Raptors got a humbling reminder of how far they have to go, especially if they're dealing with an injury to this key player. Let's get into it. This is Amateur Sports, the YouTube channel dedicated to Toronto Raptors content and videos like this and live streams on the channel. So drop a like if you enjoyed this video along the way and subscribe for more content just like it. And also, to give that extra support to the channel, make sure you shop out the merch that we just released last week. We have hats in white and black. We have the shirts, which I'm wearing here. Use the Kijiji link that is in the top of the description to message me, and we can figure out how to get the items to you, be it shipping or personal local delivery by myself in downtown Toronto. But for today's video, we're focusing on the impact that Jakob Poeltl's injury could have on this team. And hypothetically, of course, because we really got an example of what this team could look like when Jakob Poeltl is out. In the previous game against the Thunder, the Raptors, yes, it was a resounding defeat. It was 129-92. I want to get this game out of my mind here, but it was a difficult matchup against a difficult opponent who had all of the perfect counters to play against this Raptors team. The Thunder are a very good defense. They take away drives. They take away shots at the rim. That is where the Raptors want to thrive with the likes of Barnes and Barrett. They want to drive. They want to get to the rim. The Thunder were able to take that away from them, and it led to an ugly result. But what added on to the ugliness of that game was the showcase of what this team may look like when Jakob Poeltl is out. Now, he's not injured. He was only dealing with an illness for that Oklahoma City Thunder game. But in the event, just like last season, Jakob Poeltl does pick up an injury. What does this Raptors team look like? That was the scary thought that dawned on me in the morning of that game, the morning before the Oklahoma City Thunder game, when it was revealed that Poeltl was dealing with an illness and he was questionable for the game. The haunting thought dawned on me of what the hell this team is going to do when the player is out injured. Because you look at last season, the Raptors' 82-game season, Jakob Poeltl missed 32 of those games. Now, granted, the Raptors were really bad last season. They only won 25 games in total. But in the 32 games that Jakob Poeltl missed, I go to the stat a lot. The Raptors won 4 games. 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. They lost 28 of the 32 games that Jakob Poeltl missed last season. So yeah, he's a pretty important player to the team, not just because of the impact he brings from a defensive standpoint, rim protection, offensively, the spacing that he provides to those drives. Like people always say, we need a floor spacing center. Well, I look at Jakob Poeltl. Here's a guy playmaking out of the high post, which brings center out of the paint, which brings space to his teammates. Here's a guy who sets fantastic screens, which gives more space to Barnes and Barrett on their drive to the rim, where that is where the Raptors, as I've said, are at their most successful on offense. So he's not spacing the floor by shooting, but he's spacing the floor in other ways. He's a very important player in that way. And he's become even more important this season because he's having a career year so far. He's putting up career statistics, like his points per game, what has typically been around like 11, 12 points per game, is up to 16 points per game this season. His rebounds, which is typically around 9 rebounds per game, is up to nearly 12 rebounds per game this season. So his usage has increased, his production therefore with it, without sacrificing too much of his efficiency. He is a extremely valuable player towards this team. And again, if you don't believe me, you can reference the record of the team from last season. But again, on the injury front, what if there is an injury to Jakob Poeltl? What does this team look like? We had a glimpse against the Thunder, who were really good. We're favored by 10 points anyways, but it was almost 40-point beatdown in that game. When Poeltl is out injured, as soon as I thought he was questionable, he's played every game so far this season. As soon as I saw he was questionable, I was like, who the hell is going to start in his place? Like, what the hell are they going to do? So I thought, like, does Mobo go in? You kind of sacrifice a bit of size there. I'm not sure if that's the right guy to start. Like, do you dare go Bruno Fernando? Like, do you have to start Bruno Fernando? Does it almost make sense to put Barnes in the starting center? Like, play him as a small ball center? That may have been logical, but Barnes has been so good as the point guard and ball handler that you just want to keep him in that position, which makes sense. So the Raptors did end up going with Bruno Fernando as the starting center for the team. Not that Bruno did a bad job relative to like the expectations you have for the player, but that's not a starting center in the NBA. There is a definitive lack of center depth on this team. That was apparent going into the season, and it's even more apparent when Jakob Poeltl isn't there to take up the bulk of the minutes there. Because, like, even though you have some bigs on the roster, you have Fernando, you have Mobo, Olynyk when he's healthy there. None of them are really great rim protectors. That's a very important trait to have within your group in an NBA game. So just to not have that, again, we got a humbling lesson of where this team really is at with their season, and especially if Jakob Poeltl is out injured. The good news, Jakob Poeltl doesn't really get injured very often, or does he? Well, let's look at so far in his NBA career. In his rookie season, he played in 54 games. In his second season, he played in all 82 games. That was when he was still in the Raptors. After the trade to the San Antonio Spurs, he played 77 out of 82 games. And then it gets a little bit tricky because these were shortened seasons. His next season, fourth year in the league, he played 66 out of 71 games. The next season, he played in 69 out of 72 games. Then this is where the injuries started to creep in for the player once we get to the 2021-2022 season, where then he played 68 out of 82 games. Then in the season where he got traded to the Raptors, 22-23, he played in 72 out of 82 games. So again, he's still playing in a lot of these games, but double-digit games missed in back-to-back seasons after being a very healthy player. And then the most recent season with the Raptors, as we know, he missed 32 games. Therefore, he played in 50 out of the 32 games. So the start of his career, real Iron Man you had in Jakob Poeltl, which was fantastic to have. Like, the best ability is availability sometimes. But for this season, what can we expect out of Jakob Poeltl's health? I mean, we just don't know. Like I said, the track record is he doesn't get injured very often, but in the last two seasons, maybe some more missed games have started to creep in for the player. So the good news is he doesn't seem to get injured very often. The bad news is that maybe those injuries are starting to come up a little bit more as he gets older. So for this season in particular for the Raptors, we talked about this team, like maybe it is too good to tank. And I think when it's healthy and when it's mostly healthy, it is too good to tank. They're competitive in so many of these games this season. They're winning games now a little bit more often, especially since Scottie Barnes has returned from injury. And we talked about this in the last video I did, which was on Wednesday. They might be too good to tank, but it's going to be a very important stretch of games to see where they're at. They played the Thunder at home, then now they have the Mavericks at home, then the Knicks at home. 3 difficult games where they were 10-point underdogs against the Thunder. They're probably going to be 7-point underdogs against the Mavericks, 6 or 7-point underdogs against the Knicks. 3 tough games on the bounce that will be a real measuring stick sort of stretch of games to see just where the Raps are at. Now, kind of unfair in this one to go into the game against the Thunder without a center, but even still, nearly a 40-point loss in that game. We'll have to see how far the Raptors can go this season, and we'll get a little bit more of a hint into exactly what this team is capable of in those next 2 games against the Mavericks and against the Knicks once again at home, where the Raptors still have an above 500 record at 6-5. But this just one game absence, and hopefully it is just a one game absence for Poeltl, reaffirms the fragility that this team has, especially in the center position. So that, yes, when they're healthy, they can be competitive, but as soon as like 1 or 2 key injuries start to mount up, this team could be in a lot of trouble. So how does this change the outlook on the season? Well, I would still very much like for the backup center position to be addressed. It wasn't addressed in the offseason. I would like to have a more solidified backup rim protector rather than, basically they had no other choice but to go with Bruno Fernando in the end. But a little bit more being done to address that position would be a goal of mine at some point during this season. That's easier said than done. So for now, for the time being, the Raptors, just do what you can. I mean, I think December is a little bit too early December especially, to really be thinking about that long-term outlook on the season. Just keep trying to win games. And if injuries happen to come up, then maybe the record slips, and maybe around February, the front office decides tanking is the best direction for this team. But maybe Poeltl just had a weird year last year where he picked up a long-term injury, which is just very unusual for him to do based on his track record in the NBA. Maybe he's back. He plays the rest of the season. We get Emmanuel quickly back in a couple weeks. The team is mostly healthy. Bruce Brown's return is around the corner. Kelly Olynyk's return is around the corner. And if all these guys are healthy, this could definitely be a playoff team. So a wide range of outcomes for the Raptors this season. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. For the present, go out there and try to win basketball games. make those difficult decisions a little bit later on. And we'll cover those difficult decisions later on this channel right here. Amateur Sports, the YouTube channel dedicated to Toronto Raptors content. Drop a like if you enjoyed this video. Subscribe for more content just like it. And to give that extra support to the channel, check out the merch that we have. I have shirts and hats. Check out the Kijiji link. Send me a message and we'll figure out how to get you that merch. And also to give the extra support, I'm starting some member exclusive content. For the members in the channel, we start a video game playthrough tonight at 5 p.m. Eastern time for Dead Space on the PlayStation 5. Really excited to bring you that fun extra content for the people who give that extra support to the channel. Nonetheless, I'll see you guys again next time for another video.